All right, so on question number 2 down here, we have how many moles of C3H8 are needed to make 67 grams of water, and the molar mass of water is 18 grams, and it gives us our balanced equation. So first thing I want to do before we go over this is kind of remind you of the mole map. So this will be information that you're given on the test. So remember, on the mole map for stoichiometry, we have grams of what you have or given. That would first have to be converted to moles of what you have. Have or given. And by have or given, that means what you have or what you were given in the problem. Then we'll convert that to moles of what we want. And then last but not least, we will convert that to grams of what we want. So remember, there's 3 steps to this. So each one of these going from one to the other is a step. You do not have to use all 3 steps. It really just depends on what your problem is asking you to do. So step number 1 is to take you from, if you're not given moles to start with, you're given grams, to take you from grams to moles. So we do this by dividing by your molar mass. Okay, and remember, molar masses will be given to you. Then our next step, this step you always have to do. Okay, this one, it just depends. If you're given grams, you have to do it. But if you're given moles, you start here. To go from moles of what you have to moles of what you want, you're going to do step 2, which is simply to multiply by your mole ratio. That's what MR stands for, okay? So mole ratio, once again, is from your coefficients. And so that ratio is hashtag mole of what we want over hashtag mole of what we have. And this hashtag here, that comes from your coefficients. Okay, so the mole ratio comes from your coefficients. If you just wanted to find moles, then you would be done. But if your question asked you to go to grams, so you need to find grams, you would have to do step 3. So to go from moles of what you want to grams of what you want, the last step you're going to do is multiply by your molar mass. So if you can read your problem, identify what it is that you're given and what it is that you're looking for, it'll tell you what steps you need to complete. All right, so back to question number 2 here. So how many moles of this are needed to make this much of that? So I use the chart. Balanced equation goes here. Plus 5O2 gets us 3 CO2 plus 4 H2O. Okay, I'm going to draw my lines because I like to stay organized. I also write a summary so that it's directly in front of my face so I know what I'm doing. And what I mean by that is this says how many moles. So we're looking for how many moles of C3H8 are in 67 grams of H2O, and the molar mass of H2O is 18. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. So this is what I'm given. This is what I want. So I was given grams, and then I want to find moles. So I have to go from grams to moles of what I want. So I'm only going to complete steps 1 and 2. All right, so right here is where your mole ratio goes. So you just bring down your coefficients. Remember that your coefficients are the big numbers in front. If there is no number, it's just a 1. The only 2 substances I'm asked about is C3H8 and H2O. That means I don't care about these in the middle, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them. Question mark goes with the moles of C3H8. So here's C3H8, there's the mole, so this is where my question mark's going to go. That unit is moles. That unit is not grams. That means I can get rid of those boxes. Okay. Over here, I have 67 grams of water, so that's the amount of water I was given. The molar mass of water is 18. So now that it's all set up, now I can actually go through and I can solve it. So I'm going to use a different color pen for what it is that I'm doing as I'm solving. So this is where I'm starting because that's where I'm going. So this is the information I was given. You're either given moles or grams, so that's where you're looking. All right. So this is the number I was given. So I was given grams. Based on here, my first step is to go from grams of what I have 2 moles of what I have. So that's step number 1, which says divide by the molar mass. So I'm going to take 67 and I'm going to divide by 18. And I'm going to keep 2 decimals. So that gets us 3.72. The key thing is to remember this says to divide by the molar mass. I was having students all day today take their molar mass and divide by the mass. Okay, you got to start with what you're given, then divide by the molar mass. So once I have the moles of what I have, my next step is to go to moles of what I want. So it tells me I need to multiply by the mole ratio. So the mole ratio is the moles of what you want over the moles of what you have, and that comes from your coefficients. So what I want is C3H8, what I have is H2O. So that's 1 over 4. Cross multiply, divide, because that number's on top, multiply, that number's on bottom, divide. So 3.72 times what I want, divide by what I have. So I'm going to take 3.72, I'm going to times it by 1, divide that by 4, and that gets me 0.93. That gives me, because when I do that, now I'm at moles of what I want. So that's where that answer goes. Guess what? That's what I want to find. So my final answer is 0.93 moles of C3H8. 0.93 moles of C3H8. Now, let's say that doing the chart is scary. Like, the chart just kind of throws you off. You can just follow the steps and show your work. So what I mean by that is this. So we have grams. So we have grams of what we have. We are going to go to moles of what we want. That's what our problem is. So grams of what we have to moles of what we want. So we're going to do these 2 steps. So without even use a table, we start with what we start with, which was 67 grams of water. Okay. So I'm starting here. It says step 1, divide by my molar mass. So divide by, molar mass is 18, divide by 18 grams. We're going all the way here, so I got to go through step 2. So step 2 says to multiply by our mole ratio. So that's the moles of what we want over moles of what we have. So I want this, I have this, so that's times 1 over 4, which that's just my ratio. And then that gets me moles of what I want, which is what I was going to. So now I just solve. So this is step 1, divide by your molar mass. That is step 2, multiply by your mole ratio. So this way you just kind of do it all together. So 67 divide by 18 times 1 divide by 4. And that's still with 2 decimals gets us to 0.93 moles of C3H8. Okay. As you can see, either way, it gave you the same answer.